Laertes, aboard, aboard, for shame! The wind sits in the shoulder of your sail, and you are stayed for. There, my blessing with thee. And these few precepts in thy memory see thou character. Give thy thoughts no tongue, nor any unproportioned thought his act. Be thou familiar, but by no means vulgar. Those friends thou hast, and their adoption tried, grapple them to thy soul with hoops of steel. But do not dull thy palm with entertainment of each new-hatched, unfledged comrade. Beware of entrance to a quarrel, but, being in, bear it that the opposed may beware of thee. Give every man thy ear, but few thy voice. Take each man's censure, but reserve thy judgment. Costly thy habit as thy purse can buy, but not expressed in fancy. Rich, not gaudy. For the apparel oft proclaims the man, and they in France of the best rank and station are of a most select and generous chief in that. Neither a borrower nor a lender be, for loan oft loses both itself and friend, and borrowing dulls the edge of husbandry. This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow, as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. Farewell, my blessing season this in thee. I would like you to go back, and if you look at the colored text, I would like you to go through and summarize what each of those mean. There are 8 different colors in the text, so go through one by one and kind of group them together. So there are 8 pieces of advice that Polonius gives to his son before his son leaves, and I want you to put those into modern-day English. After you do that, what I'd like you to do is to look at the very bottom where it's bolded. I would like you to explain to me how that particular piece of advice is ironic in comparison with the previous 8 pieces of advice. Then finally, what I would like you to answer is, if I look at that entire piece of speech as a whole, how does Shakespeare develop or establish Polonius's character in this speech? You want to identify what some of the characteristics are, and then look through and pay close attention to the language, and you'll see that I've underlined some elements and devices for you to take particular attention to, and then answer the question. You might want to pause at this point because I'm going to move on to scene 4. Aye, marry is it, but to my mind, though I am native here, and to the manner born, it is a custom more honoured in the breach than the observance. This heavy-headed revel, east and west, makes us traduced and taxed of other nations. They clep us drunkards, and with swinish phrase soil our edition. And indeed it takes from our achievements, though performed at height, the pith and marrow of our attribute. So, oft it chances in particular men, that for some vicious mole of nature in them, as in their birth, wherein they are not guilty, since nature cannot choose his origin, by the overgrowth of some complexion, oft breaking down the pales and forts of reason, or by some habit that too much overleavens the form of plausive manners, that these men, carrying, I say, the stamp of one defect, being nature's livery or fortune's star, their virtues else, be they as pure as grace, as infinite as man may undergo, shall in the general censure take corruption from that particular fault. The dram of eel doth all the noble substance of a doubt to his own scandal. In the opening lines, Hamlet is referring to a custom. I would like you to try to figure out what kind of custom he's referring to. And then answer why you believe Hamlet thinks Claudius shouldn't be observing that custom or celebrating that custom. Then starting around line 11, which is this line here, what I would like you to do is summarize what Hamlet believes about human nature. This is kind of a macrocosmic moment. So take a minute, read through that, and summarize what Hamlet observes about human nature. Then when you're done, what I'd like you to do is to look up in your literary analysis handbook the definition of the tragic flaw. Once you've done that, I want you to compare that definition with these lines. How is the definition of tragic flaw and these lines An example of dramatic irony.